Hey, Geekscapists, welcome to a brand new Geekscape podcast. I'm Jonathan Lennon, and coming up, we've got filmmaker Chris White. He's going to be telling you all about his amazing new film, Electric Jesus. And I'm not just being silly with that. I honestly believe that this movie is awesome. Chris has been a friend of mine for several months, and I met him at a film festival. He brought me to his house. He showed me this movie. And usually with indie movies, you don't know what you're going to get because they're really hard to make, and we'll talk about that on the show. He managed to make one that is hilarious, heartwarming, and also rocking. It's called Electric Jesus. It comes out November 2nd. We're going to talk all about it on a brand new Geekscape. So strap yourselves in, because here we go. Hey, Geekscapists, welcome to a brand new Geekscape. I'm Jonathan. If this is your first Geekscape, though, we usually talk to like filmmakers, comic book creators, actors, video game specialists, or just normal fans like you. And we do it. We've been doing this for 15 plus years right here on the Geekscape podcast. We now have a network, though. You might want to explore the network. We have about 18 shows. I got to tell you, they're free on every platform. We're talking the what are the podcast platforms? There's the Stitcher, there's the Spotify, there's the Apple Podcast, the Google Podcast. I heard there's one called like Dogcatcher. There's whatever you use to listen to your podcast. We've got tons of shows for you. And of course, this show is streaming to you free on like YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and now Twitter. I got to tell you though, be careful what you listen to on the Geekscape network. The enthusiasm is really contagious. I was listening to not the video game show Geekscape Games, which is like our flagship video game show, but Derek Carnevelt up there in Vancouver, he does a show called Xbox Game Passengers, where they talk about some of the free games that pop up on Xbox Game Pass. I can't do this. It's too dangerous. They did an entire episode on this game, Hades. It's a roguelite. If you don't know what that means, it's a video game where every time you play it, the levels change. So you can't get used to patterns and things like that. Every time you go into a new room or a new part of the stage, it changes. So this new it's been out a while, but this roguelike Hades, they talk about this thing so enthusiastically, and I'm sitting there just trying to cover what's going on in the network, listening to this show to make sure the quality is high on the Geekscape network. Derek and his little Canadian friends talk so enthusiastically about this game. What does this guy do later that day? I go out and buy Hades, and then I start playing it on my Switch, and it's too expensive to just buy games every time one of the Geekscapists goes crazy about it. Go see a movie every time. Go read a comic every time. If you love pop culture consumerism, maybe this is for you. But, you know, I ended up buying some video games and comics and a bunch of stuff just because the Geekscape is here to talk about it. But that's what it's for. But we're going to be talking about a movie here that I think y'all should go out and pre-order as well. Hopefully my enthusiasm is contagious and you find yourselves clicking pre-order on this movie. We're talking to the filmmaker right now. His name is Chris White. He's a good friend of mine, and his movie is fantastic. It's one of my favorites of the year. Here he is, straight from Greenville, South Carolina.
Yeah.
Hey,
Jonathan, when you were relating that story about us meeting at the film festival that we met at, that was in my hometown, Reedy Reels Film Festival.
The Reedy Reels Film Festival.
And it's true that I asked you to come to my house and watch my movie. Dude, and you did. You did.
I could have been murdered. Like as I'm saying that story, I'm like,
so could I could have been murdered.
Well, I mean, yeah,
critically murdered.
Yeah, you could. Well, you could have actually been physically murdered. And I was like, okay, two things. Here's what I think, Chris. All right, and I'll try and keep this PG. I was like, two things are going to happen here.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go over and we're going to watch this guy's movie. He's been talking about it all week. He may not have other interests. He's been talking about this movie so much. Okay, like, all right, we're gonna go over to this guy's house. You know, his wife is there. Heidi's with me.
Yeah,
we're either gonna watch this movie, or they're gonna be into some weird shit. And if they're like, and I don't know what to do because I just met these guys. I just met them, and we're in their hometown, and we're like in their house.
Yeah.
If the weird stuff, if he comes out in like a donkey mask or something, if I walk in and there's like harnesses or a cage of some sort, like, how do I excuse myself from that?
I think you just go with it. Would be what you would do in that situation. Okay. And I'm glad that you guys didn't run out of there when we came out in our bathrobes, because we were just trying to communicate that we were friends and we were like old friends. And...
You guys want to play a game? I was like, just put the gun away. I'll do it. Put the gun away.
Now please. I'm going to start my movie.
You guys want to watch my movie? Made it with some local kids.
More so my wife, but you must tell people we are very warm, welcoming people that don't give off a creepy vibe.
No, I'd spent
at least my wife is.
Yeah. By that point, like I'd spent a week with y'all, and like you're not any more creepier than some of the Geekscapists. Like, it's Geekscape. True. You're gonna get some social, you're gonna get some social awkwardness here.
That's true. I love it though. I had such a great time though. I'm so glad y'all came, and that was one of the cool things about having a film festival in your hometown is like cool people come to you. You hope, and it definitely happened. It was awesome meeting you.
And I got to tell you, you know what would have been really awkward, because I can run away from like the weird like cannibalism or Satan worship, whatever the heck you had going on in your house there, and I didn't check all the rooms. It might still have some of that stuff going down. I didn't check all the rooms.
This is the basement right here, and it's
oh boy, boy,
not that creepy, is it?
Luckily, Geekscapists, you cannot smell a podcast. Who knows what's going on in that basement? No, it's fine. But what would have been really awkward, and I mean this sincerely, how many times has somebody showed you their movie and it's not good, and you're sitting there and they're like, "So what do you think?" And you just have to pick your spots on what to tell them. Like, we've been in that situation many times, haven't we? I'm so glad that you spared me from that. I could have dealt with like y'all coming out with sex toys, but you came out with like, if you didn't come out with a bad movie, I would have been really, really up.
I know. Yeah, that's worse. That's way worse.
It's way worse.
I've got a good a thing to say to people if they show, like an actor friend shows a director, maybe somebody in a play, and it's not good. You just look at them kind of astonished afterwards and just like, my God, that was so much work. And just let them start talking. They will start talking. If you say, really wow, happens. So much work, they will go, oh yeah. And then they talk and you don't have to say anything bad. That's my go-to.
You're hoping that the conversation doesn't like tapers out before you have to say
it doesn't. It's always worked. It's always worked. Artists like to talk about their stuff, and if you're just like, wow, you can also say, my God, you're so passionate about this, and then just
your passion came through.
Dot.
I've done that. We've both taught our share of students. And sometimes they go and they make something, and sometimes the students make some stuff that's incredible. They become peers and professionals and collaborators. And sometimes you're like, whoa, loved the soundtrack.
Right.
Yeah. And I think they immediately, I ain't good with the poker face, man. I don't know. I don't even know how to play poker.
Here's another good one. You can say, I think it was around the 18-minute, 18-30 seconds, somewhere in there. There was a beautiful edit. Do you know what I'm talking about? And just let them start talking.
Okay, here's where. Okay, here's where I think we differ, Chris. You're a nice person, and I feel, maybe it's from the comic books, but I feel that I have a social responsibility to end this behavior. If the movie's not good, I think that they should think again before making another one. And so I sometimes say, let me tell you what I found challenging. And I ease into the, oh, fuck. It really matters how much I care. You know what I mean? It does matter also how much I care.
Yes, absolutely.
Because you had moments in your movie where, and I had this Geekscape go back in the podcast feed like 2-3 episodes ago. No, not the Venom 2 special. Don't watch Venom 2. Not the What If special. But I had this filmmaker, Eric, and we were talking about his movie, and it's like got kaiju in live action. He shot it real indie in Oklahoma. I loved the movie.
Cool.
I actually loved it.
Cool.
But you can see the seams in it, right? And I think with a lot of indie movies, you can see the seams. I love those stories, right? Like, remember when I identified in that one scene that y'all were racing the sun going down?
Yeah,
because it was really challenging to do a color, like you're like coloring that scene must have been tough, because when you're losing light, pushing color is really hard to do in post.
Right.
Getting the light back to make it look even, especially with a shot that you maybe did 15-20 minutes earlier, is really hard to match.
Yeah.
So I love those stories.
Yeah.
With your movie, I didn't have to say anything. I loved the entire damn thing.
Thanks.
If anything, I had to fight my own anger. Like John, I was like, "Damn, this guy knocked it out, man! You have to step into a ring with this guy." Good luck on the festival circuit with Chris White running around.
No, we'll make stuff together. We won't fight. No, I do think that you should tell the truth to people, especially, and like you said, depends on how much you care. I do have an my nice guy entree to telling you harsh stuff. Is I'll say, how much truth do you want? Percentage, how truthful do you want me to be? Do you want me to be 80% truthful, maybe 10% truthful? And usually people are like, no, 100% truthful. I'm like, okay, this really works with students too. You're like, okay, are you sure? Why don't we start at 70? It's kind of like heat on a Thai at a Thai restaurant. Like I can make it hotter, but I can't bring it back down once we're once you're at 7
you're talking about the spicy level.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
you get not the temperature, because I was about to say, you know how many frogs have boiled alive because they're oh, I can take it, and then the temperature slowly goes up, and before you know it, they're boiling and crying. And I was like, what? I didn't know I was turning the temperature up. You didn't know you were boiling to death? Because isn't that sort of
a lot of frogs?
I boil a lot of frogs. You're talking about the temperature in the food, the spiciness. Yes, you cannot.
So if somebody says I want 100% truth, and I'm like, here we go, and because I can't go back to 10% truth when I say, like, the camera was always in the wrong place. Like once that comment's made, and then the whole movie's ruined.
This was an abject failure. You're right, because I have found myself in situations where I want to come out, if we're keeping the cooking like metaphor, some of my comments are the equivalent of when you don't wait 2 minutes after a Hot Pocket in the microwave or a bagel bite.
Oh yeah.
That might be the hottest thing on the surface of the planet. Like, I've never been to a volcano, obviously. Like, there is magma. There are hot things on this planet. I don't think they equal a Hot Pocket or a bagel bite if you have not waited 2 minutes to get out of the microwave. Like, that is the hottest shit you'll ever touch. That is instantly like the end of the roof of your mouth.
Yeah. And it's so maddening.
Those are the comments I want to give.
Okay, then you are you're basically a despicable person, and we've established that now. But
silence speaks volumes. Silence speaks volumes. I was not silent after I watched your movie Electric Jesus.
Thank you again. You have you're a really established and excellent director and filmmaker yourself, and I love this guy.
You're like my closest friend now.
You're a great conversation too. Like, I don't think we've ever been around each other where we weren't just new things to talk. We had things to talk about. So it does mean a lot when somebody says that like that. So I really appreciate it.
And I know that we talked a lot about the movie. In Geekscape, this film is from a world that I did not have a lot of experience in. The world it takes place in is like this Christian rock metal scene, and not just like a current thing, but in the 80s when Chris grew up, Christian metal and Christian bands and Christian rock and roll they're kind of an enigma, because it's a mix of the rebellion of teen youth and metal, and then Christianity. And there were tons of these bands, and I remember one or two and making fun of them and this and that, but people take them seriously. In your movie, which is a fictional film, takes place in that world.
Yes.
And and it has a lot of a credibility. So I'm guessing you had a little bit of an upbringing in that world too.
Oh yeah, sure. When I was a kid, I grew up in the '80s in South Carolina, and my parents, me and my sister, my parents took us to church from pretty much as soon as we got out of the hospital, when we were born. So we were lifelong Southern Baptists, which just means, which was very common where I grew up. And at that time, the '80s in particular, the idea of like evangelical Christian youth group culture was really strong. In the '70s, there had been this thing out in California, the Jesus movement, where all these hippies found Jesus. And out of that came like Christian rock music and youth ministries and Christian films. And a lot of Christian pop culture came out of this cultural moment that happened in the early '70s in Southern California and kind of spread across the United States. So the culture I grew up in was a fully matured world of Christian youth group culture, Christian music, Christian pop culture. There were Christian comic books at the Christian bookstore, and there were some Christian novels and things like that. So yeah, my world was steeped in evangelical, and not like now evangelical. I think it means like right-wing politics. Then it was tending towards that, but it wasn't very right-wing like we think of it now. It was more evangelical means that you share your faith with other people. That's just the root of that term is you evangelize. You tell
now
people
you feel that
about
there's
you.
negative connotations to it.
Oh my, well, yeah. Yeah, now it's more like a political position. And that's not, the theology hasn't changed. It's just the way we refer to things. Now we think of things as, oh, that's evangelical Christian. That's Trump voters,
Sure.
But the actual theological implication of that would be, I would be a Christian kid that would tell you about Jesus and talk to you about getting saved. And, do you think you're going to go to heaven when you die? And, that kind of stuff.
And you're a musician, like you play.
No, I wish.
Not at all.
No.
You're like me then, where you're like film has to be our into this world, and we
yeah. And I think I have relative pitch. I can sing. Like you play a note and I can hum it or sing it. Sure. I think that's what relative pitch is. But I can't. And I like music. I listen to all kinds of music and always have. So I think I have decent taste.
But you contributed to some of the music in this film. And there's tons of music in the film because the film Geekscape follows. It's a coming of age story. You've described it. I've described it as what would you say? What's the film with Jason Lee, etc. The Rolling Stone film.
Yeah.
We're both kind of blanking on this one, and it's the reference.
See it.
I think it's the reference on this one.
Wait, Jason Lee, that's a different one. I'm thinking of that Jason thing you do.
No, not that thing you do.
Because this is similar to that. It's the one.
Yeah, Matt Kelly's got it in the comments. He says "Almost Famous," and
yeah, right.
Very much.
I forget about Jason Lee being that, but yeah, that's right.
This is very much to me like Almost Famous, but in a Christian rock world. And I'm a cynic when it comes to a lot of the religious stuff. So I was like, oh, I can't wait for them to make fun of this religious stuff. And you don't. You have fun with it. That's not to say this movie isn't hilarious. It's not to say that you don't poke fun at where we were in that era, where these kids were in that era, and how serious they were about something that sometimes can be deemed hokey. But you do it with love.
Coming from a Geekscape idea, maybe this is an ideal that I developed being a nerdy kid. Like, I don't want to make fun of your thing. I don't want to mock you for liking something or believing something that's weird, or I just don't think that's any fun. It's a form of bullying. It's a form of diminishing people. And with this, my personal experience was very charming and lovely. And a lot of people have really bad experiences in a youth group, like really bad. Mine was just kind of good. It's not to say there were weird things about it, but in general, it was very positive. So there was no point. It wouldn't be an authentic story for me if I went and, told some really cynical Jesus hating story, you know. And also the film that I think my film draws from on some level is like maybe the teen in the teen genre would be Napoleon Dynamite,
Sure.
where the characters are just weird and they are funny, and we don't have to point out they're funny. We don't have to make fun of them. I just think if you love, I'm sure you and many people watching the same way. Like I love weird people. I don't necessarily have to agree with your take on every movie or video game or comic book to love you and think you're cool. I like people that are into weird stuff. And so with this, we treated that.
I'm very cynical of the boring person.
Yeah.
I'm very like critical of someone. And I'm like, what do you do here? Like you have such a limited time on this planet that
right.
I won't, you know, I could be mean myself, but I won't stand for people who are just mean and just cruel and just, you know, mean, and or that carry around too much anger. And of course we're all guilty of that. But if you just are kind of boring, it's like, hey man, like light that fire. We don't have a whole lot of time here. Like, you don't know how much time you got. Like, let's go. And if that leads you to something weird, hey, all the better, because you're diversifying this planet. That's
a great way to put it.
My two like pet peeves are mean and weird and like boring. Like, so, come on, man, let's get the party going. Let's move the party along. Let's go. Matt Kelly's in the chat and he says, oh geez, if only you had a writer who knows all of this stuff with a birthday this week to join you. Well, happy birthday, Matt. I've given you half the network to have guests on. As host of half the shows here at the Geekscape Network, Matt, have Chris on the show and talk to him. And Matt likes to take over. That's the problem with Matt.
I think he's gonna come in here.
Matt's gonna come in here and be like, okay, oh guys, so then this one time in 8th grade, and I'm like, oh Jesus, this guy. Can I have my show back? I'm kidding. He does have questions. You know what? He did ask.
Oh,
well, yeah. Go ahead. No, please.
No, you were saying something I wanted to riff on a little bit about carrying anger around and being angry about stuff. I'm angry too. You know, like I'm a 51-year-old man. Of course, I'm walking around with frustrations and anger. And this has been really big in the past year and a half. I can't be pissed about everything all the time. I just can't. I can't take on more things to be pissed off about. Like, I need to be streamlining and editing out things to be pissed off on. I can't be mad about everything. So a lot of just processing and trying to be a healthy person is, okay, that's really bad, but I can't do that today. I can't be outraged about that. I'm still outraged about these 40 things.
Twitter? Oh, Twitter is just Twitter. Like, but it's just outrage porn. It's just like you go on there and you start to spiral and you're like, and I'm mad about that. And I'm mad about this. And oh yeah, and that motherfucker. And this. And I'm going to cancel that person into the Stone Age. And it's like, you know what? Cancel so one person a day. Just pick one thing a day to be angry with and pick like 5 things to love. I think you'll be okay.
Right. And also like on Twitter, I do like jokes. I mean, Twitter's got good funny stuff too. And so, or it did. It is getting pretty dark for sure. But
so you have this background. Mm-hmm. You become a filmmaker, but like, when do you start putting the script together for this whole thing, this whole process? Because this is your first feature film. You've worked as an AD. You've worked as a director on smaller projects.
Well, I had made some very like no budget feature length things, like improvised movies. I did a scripted.
Let me see those.
Okay, yeah, I will. You'll see the seams.
Are your mumblecore movies any good?
There's some that's mumblecore out there.
You don't bring people over to see those movies now, do you?
Oh, come on. When I got like a jewel like Electric Jesus, I'm not going to show you Sin Purgatorio and get better. But you know.
You have a Purgatorio movie?
Yeah.
Purgatorio is a setting in Electric Jesus Geekscape and has one of my favorite characters in that setting, played by our friend Sean, who I met through Chris. That's dude, because we went to dinner. Yeah, and I was riffing about, hey man, this guy needs a sequel. Like, he's the one character in this movie I want to see more of. He's this Satan lover who goes spoilers, the Christian band in this movie, and it's not much of a spoiler because it's the opening of the film. The Christian band of the movie finds themselves having to play basically a satanic biker club. And
just a nightmare. A very exaggeratedly bad.
It's a nightmare. And our friend Sean plays this guy who's like, "You Christian babies, you bunch of virgins," and like fucks with the band. And I was always like, I gotta see more of that guy. Like, what's his problem? And Sean had a whole backstory to his character, this and that. So hearing that setting, Purgatorio, the club, that had come off of one of your other movies, I'll put myself through one of your mumblecore movies.
Okay. I'll send you a link, man. I'll send you a link.
I mean, I'd like to have my phone with me, but I'll watch it. I mean, I'll watch it.
Sure.
I'll have my phone on me, but I'll watch it.
No, for sure. Electric Jesus was the first feature I did that, was like, that my wife, who's my executive producer and co-producer with me, it was the first movie where she wasn't making the food, it was the first movie where we weren't, stepping off set to tell people where to park cars, those were, I'm proud of that work. And I will show you that stuff, but it's not commercial, these are things that would be made, maybe the most expensive, I think, Cinema Purgatorio. It's about some filmmakers trying to meet Bill Murray in Charleston, South Carolina, where he lives. And that we shot that for less than $50,000. I mean, I guess that's some money, but I mean, people shoot shorts for $50,000.
I mean, so, have you seen the documentary on meeting Bill Murray that Tommy Avalone did? Okay, because Tommy's a frequent Geekscape guest.
Okay,
Tommy's a homie. Have you met Tommy?
I haven't.
We're gonna hook it up. We're gonna hook it up. Be like, I wrote the fictionalized version of your documentary, and y'all just deal with it in court. What?
After the film came out and was just kind of did a couple of festivals and stuff, we did meet Bill Murray because we were somewhere where he was, and somebody did make that introduction. And I said, Bill, I made this film about how I really wanted to meet you, and then I realized that I didn't need to meet you to be happy and successful as a person, which is like the theme of the movie. They don't have to meet Bill Murray. And he just looked at me and was like, okay. It's like, it's kind of like, I think he was touched. I think he was touched.
Having met Bill Murray and him being completely unmoved by that put you into a depression. So you were actually in a better spot before you met Bill Murray.
I think he's like, okay, fine, good.
Okay, you made him.
I thought you were going to ask me to take a selfie, but okay, you don't need that. Good.
I find that to be a little weird. To take a selfie. I got to tell you, sometimes we've been doing this show for a long time. We've been talking about being college professors at times, like Indiana Jones was. And I started a quarter at school 2 weeks ago. Student asked me for a selfie with him. And I was like, let's do it up. Not the first student to be like, hey, I listen to your podcast. Hey, are you the Jonathan from, there's only one of me. I'm like the Highlander. I eliminate the rest. But this is the first time a student was like, hey, can I get a selfie with my teacher? I'm like, yeah, sure. Do it. So that me and the rest of the students can make fun of it? No.
It could be.
It could be. It was very nice. The student's actually a very talented filmmaker himself, and I'm excited to see where he goes. And he comes from a filmmaking family. His father's a director, and I'm going to have his father on the show very soon because his father directed Kickboxer. And Bloodsport. Okay. So I'm going to bring him on the show. That's a preview, Geekscapists. We're going to have that guy on the show to talk about making those Van Damme classics, which we worship. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about Electric Jesus. I have some questions coming from the comments, mainly about like what some of your favorite bands were back in the day, some of your favorite Christian bands. The only one I recognize is like Carmen. You mentioned Carmen in the movie, and obviously like Stryper. Like Stryper is there. Okay. Like Stryper you would listen to. I remember a neighbor had a Carmen record. His mom had like a Carmen record or something. This kid was such a fucking delinquent, right? This kid was so effed up. And his mom was like so strict. Carmen. And that was the first. This kid was so messed up. I got to tell you something. Okay, I'll tell you the story about this kid. He was this kid was also very like his parents would get him anything he wanted. So he's the kid with all the Nintendo games. He had all the Ninja Turtles. He had all the Ninja Turtle figures. If you wanted anything, he'd get it. You know, he had it. So you'd always go and hang out with that kid. Like, you didn't even like that kid that much, but you'd hang out at his house because you play. It was like being in a free arcade. He had every game. So let me tell you, because this was actually a very pivotal story in Jonathan's upbringing. So I'm over that kid's place and we're playing the Nintendo, and the Nintendo has to be in the parents' room so they can monitor the hours of Nintendo play. So it's in their bedroom. So we're playing Nintendo NES Classic in the bedroom, and they have a bathroom, and I get up to use the bathroom, and the kid's playing the Nintendo. And I'm sitting there on the bathroom, and I look down at my feet, and it's the first time I ever saw a box of tampons, Chris. And I didn't know what they were. I had this box of tampons, Chris, and I'm looking at them, and I don't know what the fuck it is. They look like Roman candles to me. You know what I mean? Remember the Roman candles? Because it looked like they had a fuse on it. You maybe light it, and it shoots out. Why would you have those in the bathroom? I have no idea. So I come out.
You mean just laying out in the bathroom, just on the floor?
They were in the box. They were just in a box, but I pick it up. I'm
directly under the feet that would be sitting on the toilet?
It was to the left, over by where you'd like put the plunger and stuff, right?
Okay.
It wasn't under the sink. It wasn't, it was just a box of tampons sitting by the
toilet. Grab and go.
So I grab it, and I'm like, what the F is this? And I'm trying to take it apart and stuff, because you're a kid and you destroy things because you have questions. I come out of the bathroom, and I go back to Robbie, and I was like, huh. I just said his name, whatever. I sit down next to him, and I'm sitting there, and we go back to 2-player video games. And I turn on and I go, hey, man, your mom has this box of stuff like next to the toilet, and they look like Roman candles or candle or something, and they have a string sticking out of them. What is that all about? And he goes, I don't know, man. I tried figuring it out. So I spied on my mom once, and later I put one on my butt, and nothing happened.
Oh. God, Robbie.
So I think he successfully saw his mom use one, and then figured maybe he has this. Yeah, so.
That is somewhat like the awkwardness of the scene in Electric Jesus. Although there are no female hygiene scenes in the film, but it is that kind of weird awkwardness of just trying to figure out and make sense of the world and make sense of the weird stuff that's coming into your life. But Robbie, are you in touch with him? Are you writing him in prison? What's going on in that relationship?
No. I haven't seen him since we left high school. But he was a good kid. I think the clamps were on a little too tight, and he had a lot of what an extinction burst is, when you put the behavior on extinction, and they're like, well, if you're gonna put an end to that, I'm gonna lash out. He had a lot of bursts. He was a kid who liked to burst out and be a little delinquent back in the day. But what kid wasn't? Maybe me. I don't know. It's kind of boring. I was like, all right, I'm just gonna go read comics. But let's go back to it. Like, Stryper. They mentioned Stryper a lot in the movie. Yeah, a lot of these bands. Some of these are real, right?
So the world of the movie, we decided to make all the Christian artists real. So the band in the movie is called 316, which is a fictional band, although there were apparently dozens of Christian rock bands called 316. It's a pretty cool name. It's based on the Bible verse, John 3:16.
No, I thought that was a wrestling thing. Yeah, sure.
Well, I'm messing. That's a riff on that, right?
I'm messing with you. Yes.
Okay, so
I'm not that big of a heretic.
But
oh yeah, the wrestling reference. I get you.
Yeah. So the band is fake, but the world they're inhabiting isn't. So there is a scene where they ask the sound guy, when they're interviewing him to be the sound man, they ask him what music he likes to listen to, and he rattles off literally 66 band names.
That's an impressive scene too, because I don't think you cut too much in that scene. You actually had the performer memorize a psychotic level of Christian music.
Yeah. No.
It wasn't just Christian music. It was like you actually had a bunch of other stuff.
Well, he said too, right? There's some people that aren't strictly Christian, but they're Christians, like Bob Dylan and The Call, and so he names U2, that kind of thing. But that scene was there to be like the scene where, you know, we find out this kid has deep geeky knowledge about Christian rock.
Yeah, it's
And
like Matt
also
Kelly. It's like Matt Kelly with horror movies, like a VHS
yeah.
collection.
Well, and so all of those bands he names and artists are real. They are for real. And my music supervisor, John Thompson, who is just knows more about Christian music than anybody I've ever met, he wrote that list for me. I said, I want him to just rattle. I want it to be 66 because there's 66 books in the Bible. It'll just be a deep cut trivia thing. Somebody will know someday. But I want
they're actively counting the bands as he says.
Oh yeah. Well, it's like one of those things that somebody, you hear about it and like, I heard it was like 66, one for every book of the Bible. You know, there's just a little Easter egg to bring pleasure to you as you watch the movie. So, yeah, John wrote those. I knew most of them, but I didn't know all of them, and some are really cool. But when I was in the 80s, you know, I liked Michael W. Smith. I liked Steve Taylor, was probably my favorite. He was kind of new wave, dancey kind of pop music. Christian artists. I like the Altar Boys. They were one of those SoCal bands.
What about
Daniel Amos?
Go ahead. And you had Danielson involved in the movie, and he's
so my musical collaborator is a guy named Daniel Smith, who was in a band that was not a Christian band, although they were on a Christian label called Tooth and Nail. And so they were, and it's his whole family is in the band, and they're very eclectic, alternative folk punk. Alternative folk punk was how I would describe Danielson. And he is a Christian, but he wasn't trying to make Christian music. You know, he was trying to make great music. And his stuff is amazing. Danielson or Danielson family, you can find all that stuff. But I met Daniel through a mutual friend, and I'm working on this Christian rock thing. And I was like, you should write these songs. And so what our collaboration became was Daniel actually wrote the melodies, and we wanted the songs to be good, even though they were going to be dressed up like 80s metal songs.
Yeah, but the songs are good.
Yeah, but at the core, you know, melody, it has to be good. And then I wrote the words. So I'm writing the 15-year-old Christian kid's lyrics, which tend to be, you know, maybe a little pretentious or funny, you know.
Fun. I like this.
But Daniel made the songs good, and the reasoning is because when you think of a band you liked when you were 14, 15 years old, they're much better in your memory, especially like if you saw a band live. Oh, we saw this band play one time. It was like the greatest concert I've ever seen. It's like if you went back in a time machine and attended the show, it probably wasn't that great. But in memory, it becomes great. So that's what we wanted the songs to be. We wanted the songs to echo the stories being told to us by the main character, Eric. And I want to hear the songs like he remembers them. And so they got to be great. And Daniel just knocked it out of the park. I think the music is, and there's a soundtrack out right now, streaming everywhere, Electric Jesus, music from and inspired by the motion picture. And you can hear, I mean, they're just all tons of fun. So much fun.
And Geekscape is, I definitely think that any of y'all should, and all of you really should not only listen to that soundtrack, it's definitely up on Spotify. That's where I've been forwarding it to people. But also Electric Jesus hits VOD on November 2nd, but the pre-orders are open. You can start pre-ordering that video, the movie right now, and November 2nd, you can watch it. I love the movie. I've seen it twice. I think it's so much fun. It just has a ton of heart. And it does some impressive things. I think that, I forget what I mentioned to you. The second time I saw it, I said, wait a minute. The narrator isn't, like, something about the narration. I'm not going to get it in this one. I haven't figured it out yet. But I remember thinking the narrator is at a different, it's not like the narration in Stand By Me. So, the narration in Stand By Me is like, he's writing a book, and at the end, he's talking about losing his brother and then having this adventure at Stand By Me, and he closes things up, and you have Richard Dreyfuss kind of put a bow on the end of the movie. This narration is a little bit different, isn't it? Because
that was
time shifts. And I remember coming up to you, be like, hey, I think your narration time shifts. Like, at what point is this reflection happening?
Right. So here's the trick with that. Not
to negate the movie. The movie's fantastic, but it was like a writer thing where I was like, whoa, wait, there's a little bit of a rule weirdness right here.
Yeah. So in
it's like you're a
Stand
Time
by
Lord.
Me, Stand by Me, the grown-up kid is telling us the story in his grown-up voice, which is Richard Dreyfuss, and we actually see Richard Dreyfuss at the end. What we did was we start the movie being told by the kid in the kid's voice, and the whole movie it's the kid, and it's a little bit of a spoiler. I'm not going to tell you the circumstance of this, but we get to see the kid as an adult at the end of the movie, and he's still telling us stuff in kid voice.
That's exactly what was going on.
And then he speaks, and his voice is similar, but it's obvious it's a different voice. It's a different actor. And so my thinking with that was, I think that we still, like, when I think inside my head, I still sound like I've always sounded, like when I was 12 thinking in my head. Yes. Like, my voice has not changed in my head. That's just an external thing. So some of it is the voice inside, but also I think one of the tricks of the movie too, I call it a trick. It may just be poor filmmaking, or I need to get better at it.
Well, I don't think, I had a long conversation with my buddy Andy over the weekend, because we're trying to figure out this kind of thing. And I'm like, no, and if you go back, Geekscape, we were talking about these things called French overs in the last 3 episodes ago, and that's when you shoot the singles from behind the actors crossing to the other actor. But he had started the scenes with the establishing shot being in front of the actors, so he's actively jumping over the line and swapping those characters. He's broken the line, swapping those characters' eye lines to go into the French overs to use as the singles. Nobody's going to blink at that. So these rules that you go, oh, wait a minute, it says here that you can't, like, you just forget that. Just forget that trash. And what I'm saying here is, it wasn't until the second time I saw that movie that I go, what's going on here with this voice?
Yeah.
Oh,
I think that's.
Oh, he shouldn't be saying it from his nascent teen voice. Yeah. But what you're saying now, I think emotionally, that is why it didn't register. That's why it took like refrigerator logic for me to be standing at the refrigerator at 2 a.m., as Hitchcock said, getting milk and being like, "Hey, wait a minute here." You know what Hitchcock used to say about like refrigerator logic? He's like, don't worry about refrigerator logic, because by that point they bought the ticket and they like your movie. And and I had this refrigerator logic the second time I watched it, where I was like, wait, what the? How's the grown up talking with a voiceover? That's the child actor, and it doesn't matter. And because that emotional resonance in your movie, that's the plate you don't drop. And it's probably one of the most emotional plates. And I'll tell you this, Chris White, I love this movie. You don't drop that plate. And there are parts where you have to shift from maybe you have to introduce the problem of a third act. Maybe you have to figure out a bookend, which you have a little bit of a bookend in parts of your movie. Mm-hmm. If those are really hard tonal transitions.
Yes.
And maybe on the page, you're like, oh, it's good. You still have to figure out how to point a camera at those damn things and how to edit them and make them shift. Those are really important places where the plate drop can happen. The tonal plate drop, the character plate drop can happen. The voice of the film plate drop can happen. And it's really hard to get the act moving again when you drop those plates.
I think holding a movie in tone, holding the tone is like, for me, like that's the thing I'm looking for most in the work of a director. Like, can somebody direct? I mean, you know this. We can hire camera guys to do all sorts of things. Fight choreographers can do cool things. VFX people can do. But can you keep everyone in the same movie? That's what a director's doing. And we like to think that's just the actors. Oh, let's get all the actors on the same page. It's everything, man. There's so much. You know this, like there's so much of a vibe to a movie that gets off all the time. It's it's just like, I've described it like you get all these people with you and you all jump off a cliff together and you're all falling and everybody's screaming and they're looking at you and you just can't quite tell them like, yeah, we're just going to be falling.
You have to trust me.
There's a net down here, right?
Yeah. And you love those movies too that have those and like, I think tone shifts should be applauded. I don't like a movie that doesn't mature over the course of the film, that doesn't, I think tone shifts should be applauded. And usually tone shifts just come down to, oh, they changed visuals, and that's fine. Like you changed visuals. Your film started light and ended dark or vice versa. Yeah. Or, each of your acts were represented with a different color scheme or or camera design.
Sure.
I've
Yeah.
definitely put that in decks. I've definitely had that design where it's like, oh, the movie's going to open long lens, the movie's going to close open.
Sure.
Like I think you should do those things, but having tone shifts within those broader strokes are very careful moments where at any place you can go, oh crap, I'm not getting my audience back because they don't know what they're watching. And and someone like a Taika Waititi, someone like with a Taika Waititi is like putting comedy right next to drama, and he's shifting them very fast, like a car.
Yep.
Which is why I'm in awe of him. And
Hunt
many
for
of the
Wilder
filmmakers
People, right?
Hunt for the Wilder People, I think, is incredible from start to finish. I think that the fairy tale and the horror of like a Pan's Labyrinth, start to finish, they were able to do it. And sometimes you only get some of it. Sometimes you only get some of them.
Yeah.
And you end up being like, oh, second half of that movie didn't work for me. Third part.
What do you think that is? Like, if you were teaching
dude, you're doing bookends, and not only are you doing bookends, you're doing an epilogue little thing.
Yeah.
Those are multiple places where you could have just effed your movie, pal. Did you think about that, or did you say, no, this is how I feel about my movie? Let me go. I think I know what this is. It takes bravery. I think is what I'm saying. It takes bravery, Chris.
The film's doing it like I wanted to do. Like, I'm turning a bunch of rock band movie tropes upside down, and one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to make the muse. The girl's always the muse, right? So I want the guy telling us the story to realize while he's telling us the story that he's telling the wrong story. Like, that is such a delicate, weird thing to do. How do you have him come to the realization
like he's
that the story he's told his whole life about the summer of '86 with the band and all that stuff, he's been telling it wrong? And it's this particular time he's telling us, the people seeing the movie, that it starts to dawn on him that, wait a minute, I think this was her story. And in a very powerful way, at the end, the movie ends when he realizes it was all her. But until that moment, it can't happen. And so then you've got to, I don't know. I think it's, if you were trying to tell a director, if you were teaching a directing class, you're like, how do you do those nuances? I mean, there's got to be some technique to it, or a way of thinking about it so you don't lose it.
I think it's the same way you're getting out of a bad situation, baby. One shot at a time. Like just one shot at a time. If you start thinking about that bigger stuff, if you look at the tapestry and not the pieces of fabric, like you're gonna be way off by the time you get to sewing it all up. You know what I mean? So I think it goes to that. You just break it down, and I imagine you outlined like crazy, you rewrote like crazy, and then when it came to your prep, knowing that you had a bit of a shoestring budget for your first film, or at least you didn't have an established like assembly line of being able to make a film and then go straight to like, and knowing that this was like everything was going to be an active discovery, you were very careful with every step that you took for the most part. Not to say that you extinguished the ability to improv or find some happy accidents or happy discoveries on set, but I imagine you prepped on this movie.
Yeah, and I'm also like, now I realize, and I should say one of my closest collaborators and just friends, is Scott Lansing, my editor, and I was there the whole. I mean, we just holed up and edited this movie together. I mean, and he's really good at keeping the eye on the small things like you're talking about. He can, I would just be like, oh my gosh, we don't have the scene. We don't have it. We don't have it covered. We don't have the takes. There's no way this scene is going to work.
This is terrible.
I mean, just I'm going. I'm leaving. And he's like, no, dude, chill out.
Where's the closest traffic? I gotta walk into it.
Right. Where's the whiskey? Dear God, it's under those other bottles he just drank. Oh no.
And he would say,
listen, man. Yeah. He would just like, hang on. Just like you said, I
got an idea. Let me whittle it back. I think when you start out, all right, you've got like this goal, and you aim for it, but through all of the compromise or negotiation or just discovery of making something that with that many processes and that many cooks, you end up sometimes, that first day watching like dailies and stuff is like the most depressing thing ever, because
Oh
you're
my
like,
gosh.
no,
Yeah.
no, we shot something better than that.
That's
No,
what we shot. Oh,
you
no.
thought of something better than that. You wrote
Yeah.
something better than that. But the reality of
Oh,
collaboration and compromise and having to use real world things to make those things real out of ether isn't exactly alchemy. And now editing is where you start to try and get things back, and you don't aim to get them back literally, because you're at that point putting square pegs in round holes.
And I've also got like
put
Daniel
them back
Smith.
tonally. You have to put
I've
them
got
back
Daniel-
tonally, right?
I've got Daniel Smith over there with music.
That
And
helps so
it would
much.
be like, it would just be like, because I'm afraid of music. Like music to me
Are you
just
really?
tells you how to feel. Like in
Yes,
a movie,
it
it's
can
like,
be a
oh,
crutch. It can absolutely
okay,
be
there,
a
that's
crutch.
just saying that. So like and you edit without, maybe you use a temp score or something, but you generally you edit scenes without it. You get the scene really good, and then music comes in. You're like, music's just starting to tell us everything, and we created this. So I'm a little nervous about music, but this was so great because we'd be like going to those tonal shifts and going from this moment to this moment. I could get on the phone with Daniel and say, that spot, this piece, can you give me, 13 more seconds of that, but just let it land on a piano chord and let that carry us through. Or it's just amazing what little tiny things like that can do to save you. Sound editing, another thing. Sometimes sound editing solves a problem. Sometimes, you don't
want them to direct for you, but giving it a little tone bump to get you into that emotional shift, that's not against the rules.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that's not against the rules. And you make those augmentations to enhance the moment. That's not against the rules. You're not making a music video at that point.
You're talking about rules and like, there was always the rule, a voiceover is somehow cheating. Like if you get to the movie and then you have to voice over everything, it's cheating. It's like,
I remember
so
that. That's like early film school. They tell you.
Yeah, right. And so you're like, film is a visual medium. Show me in pictures, and I think that's probably pretty good advice. Maybe writing a screenplay, but when you're getting into a tight spot, and I can just say, wait. What if in the narration he just says this, and in the back of your head you're like, yeah, but that would be cheating. That would be making the movie good. Illegally.
I think the only real rule is don't bore your freaking audience.
Right. If we did that, the audience would actually understand what's going on, and we would save our crappy movie. But so some of it, it's just like the 180 rule. Right. Audiences are so different now than they were in 1940 or 1950. Because we don't have shoe leather scenes anymore, where the guy pulls up to the building and gets out of the car, closes the door, throws the cigarette down, feet down the hallway, gets on the elevator, goes up. We just that's a cut now.
Yeah,
right?
We're in the building. Stuff. You get it. The guy got in the building.
So
I think James Bond movie last night. I was watching the James Bond movie and I was like, oh, he's already in the compound. Instead of being like, that's like he's like going to the island or the structure or whatever that he's gonna have to like get into, and you're like, man, he's gonna have to like go through and past all the guards and stuff like that. You see that you cut to like Daniel Craig like halfway into the thing, and like there's already people like draped over stuff dead, and I'm like, oh yeah, we get it. He got in. He's good.
Yeah, he's good.
It's boring now that he's gonna shoot place explosives on the back and break through with some gadget. Like that's boring now. Now it's just getting to the plot points. Yeah.
But I love that. Speaking of boring, I don't know if this conversation is boring. This is my favorite conversation I've had about Electric Jesus so far.
Really?
I don't know if yes.
I love these conversations, Chris.
I don't know if your audience is like, these old director guys are just talking about directing.
It's just Matt Kelly. That's all we got left is Matt Kelly and Chris Robertson. That's it. Nah. Heidi popped in to say she loves your movie.
Thank you.
And she's listening too. I think she's literally in the other room watching on her iPad. I can hear her yelling in the background. Perhaps you can too, Geekscape. She's going, I am.
Okay.
Oh, now she's coming in the damn room.
Well, there she is. Hi, Heidi. Hi from Greenville, South Carolina.
Here we go. All right, sweetie. Thank you. Matt Kelly says, I'm loving every second of this. Yeah, Matt.
Good.
Matt. And you're gonna have this is what hosts do, Matt. I'm messing with Matt. I love him so much. And I hear you're gonna do a little bit of you're gonna talk Striper on
Yes.
on
On that show next week.
One Hit Thunder. Yeah, Matt
Yes.
and Chris are great.
And I'm
Okay.
gonna be a Striper apologist. I don't know what Daniel's position is gonna be on it, but I'm gonna
No spoilers.
defend the boys. I think I am.
Geekscapists. If you're not subscribing to One Hit
gonna
Thunder, it's
try
one of my favorite podcasts. I love Chris and Matt's work on One Hit Thunder. It's so I really, it's like a must play. So yes, I like talking filmmaking, Chris. Like, it's what I think about. Like, and I have the same approach to comic book artists, comic book writers, and video game people. I think that the process of creating content is alchemy. I think it's the hardest thing in the world to be like, oh no, there actually is nothing there, and now you are making ideally gold. And if you use the assembly line, you're going to end up with garbage because people have already seen that before, and
it's so true. I mean, like
almost any other profession, you get learned how to use the assembly line, and how to, even it's really hard. It's really hard to make something where there was nothing. And I think even the most nascent filmmaker is some form of that wall breaker, because even the people who are the most advanced in the medical profession or the engineering profession or in their technical professions, they did follow a lot of stuff to that point in everything and now that they are the people, everything from that point forward is new breakthrough science. And that's phenomenal. Right. But there was a lot of assembly line unto this point. And as a filmmaker, storyteller, you're like, oh no, everything's from the inside and I'm just yanking it out and making it up out of the ether. And maybe there's some language that I'm following, but no story can be the same.
Right.
Nothing can be
even just following something as simple as 3-act structure, beginning, middle, and an end. Sure. Even doing that, we're always playing with where those things are happening, and is this enough of an end? Is this enough of a beginning? Wait, I just wrote 30 pages and now the movie's finally started. So delete the first 30 pages. Dude, I'm thinking, now let's start the movie.
I have the film I have now, and like, when does that movie click in? Mm-hmm. Oh, page 20. Is this really a problem I want to wait until editing to solve? Because that's a lot of money spent. I don't want to wait until editing. I got to figure this out.
And you know what? It's not a loss.
And I'm talking about getting into the second act. I'm not talking about the movie starting, like literally starting. I'm talking about getting into the second act and like how much we want the propulsion to, how much you want to rev up before you propel, right? Like if this is a jet engine, like how much do you want the thing to rev up before you take off?
Sometimes you need very little time, sometimes you need more time, and it's so fun to just the answer to the question be, well, that's correct, this first act. One of the things that saved me with Electric Jesus in the edit was I was trying to figure out how to get a bunch of backstory out quick. It was taking too long to get on the road, and suddenly it hit me. Coen Brothers, 1987, Raising Arizona. I still remember first seeing Raising Arizona. You were actually 11 minutes into the movie before the title came on. Like the first 11 minutes are a prologue.
And that is the best opening. That is like one of the top 10 openings. That is one of the most fantastic openings I've ever seen in my life. I use it as a reference all the time.
And in our edit, we're just sludging through this, and I'm in paper now. Like I've got my scripts out. I've got my desk is covered with paper, and I'm remembering, and I'm like, Scott, pull up Raising Arizona right now. Pull it up. Let's find it. It's like, why? I was like, let's just watch it. So we pull it up. I'm like, time it to when the title comes up, and we're just like, boom, boom, boom. It's like, title's still not coming up. And then it's like 11 and a half minutes somewhere in there where it comes up, and I said, that's what we're going to do here. Because we got to get to that place where it feels like, okay, here we go. We're telling the movie. And we've got a lot of content that's really helpful. We got to set this world. This world is going to be strange to a lot of people, but we just can't get bogged down in it, because I got to get the band on the road. I got to get Brian Baumgartner into the movie, quicker. How do I get to Baumgartner?
Yeah, he's like a massive part of the poster. I'll show you all the poster here, Geekscape, who are watching this. Here's a banner version of the poster, but you get the gist. Like Brian is like a major part of that poster. You know, because he's the recognizable face from the
Sure.
Office. But I got to tell you, like he's in the movie a lot. Geekscape. It's not like one of those bait and switches you get at the Red Box.
And he's very good. He's as good as you've ever seen him. I think it's his best work he's ever done.
But the young cast who play the band members, fantastic.
Yeah, killer. And,
total credit to your ability to work with. Not that they aren't not that they aren't good actors, but like they don't have all the presence and lessons and experience that Brian does, and you handled them on par with all of it. You did a really great job directing them.
Thank you. Part of that is bringing Brian onto that team. So saying to your actor, I want you to be their mentor. I want you to be their friend. I want you to be a partner with me in this. And he's such a great guy, but he was just like, yeah. And he actually in different times he related it to the way on The Office, he's famous for being Kevin on The Office, but he said, that was Carell. Steve Carell on The Office was a leader. He was clearly the show, is about him, and he was probably the biggest star on that show. But he's like, Carell was just like, he was like, we're all in this. Let's do this. And so Brian got to be a little Steve Carell for us, behind the scenes with a bunch of kids that were certainly in awe of him because, kids that age, young 20s, I mean, watch The Office constantly. And so like walks in the room as somebody from The Office. But to then have him be like your buddy, him telling you stuff about the industry, getting, when Shannon, there's a scene where she sings, it's when Eric falls in love with her. She's the main character singing in the mirror, in the bathroom mirror, a cappella. It needs to be just powerful. And her singing was perfect. She was ready to go. And then Brian, who had already rapped for the day, came up and just gave her some words of encouragement before she shot this critical scene for the movie. I mean, you just don't get that, and that's, I guess you can ask for that. But some people they aren't going to do that. And so, and he was.
Just don't look me in the eye. I tell him, just don't look me in the eyes. Don't look me in the eye. I mean, that's a rule across the board. Don't look me in the eye. Keep your eyes look down. Don't look me in the eye. I'm like a rabid dog. I'm like, don't look me. Don't challenge me, man. I had that.
that is what it is, right? Yeah.
That's the rule at Geekscape. The rule at Geekscape when Matt Kelly and I meet up at Comic Con, don't look me in the eye. Do not refer to me by name. All right. You know this. That's how I treated you at the film festival.
It is.
You were like, "Hey, Jonathan, nice to meet you." I was like, "That has yet to be decided. Do not look at me." And I do not shake hands. 10 feet. 10 feet.
That was pre-COVID. You didn't shake hands.
No, it's pre-COVID. It's because I don't shower. Damn, man. I wish we could just keep going. You're coming to town. You're doing the Newport Beach Film Festival. Next weekend.
We'll be there.
How much longer are you going to be?
28th.
Oh,
it's our last
stretch,
festival.
dog. You're here a stretch. Oh, hell yeah. Well, then let's figure out how to link up.
We're going to be around the 20th through the 28th that whole week. So we will definitely find our way to you.
Okay, we're going to figure this out.
Well, at least we're going to hang out with Heidi. I don't know about you, but
that's fine.
No, we screen. I think we're the last day and maybe the last film.
That's a really good film
Beach.
Festival.
Yeah,
I do like.
I can't wait.
Festival a lot.
They got a lot of good movies shown that I am excited to see. I'm just going to be a film fan all week.
I know our friend Taylor Morden premiered his ska documentary. Pick it up, the ska documentary. He did that one. He's currently has the Last Blockbuster documentary playing on Netflix right now. That's a fantastic one.
Oh man, I loved that movie. I loved it.
Yeah,
and that's so much fun.
And I remember playing Newport back in the day. I had a short called Gay by Dawn, my horror movie about homophobia.
I know that. You sent me that
Newport.
You were trying to teach me a lesson. I think you sent it to me.
I forget whatever the lesson was. I don't know if I think the lesson was.
I think you're homophobic. You need to watch this movie. It'll kill you.
Like, hey, so you're from the South, huh?
I felt.
I said it to everybody. Who's in the South. I'm like, let me just assume.
Listen, guys. I mean, just please.
It's my litmus test. It's my litmus test to see if we can agree that you're into equality, right? Like. You're into like human rights and all that stuff, and like people being equal.
Of course, but not for the gays. Okay.
No!
I'm sitting in that movie. You
didn't vote for Lindsey Graham, did you? All right. The conservatives long since turned this. I mean, those people. I don't think they're my listeners anymore. But we do have Matt Kelly. we got Chris Robinson, we got a ton of Geekscapists. And Geekscapists, if you're listening to this and you're like, wow, this is a really fun filmmaking conversation, storytelling conversations, hit the share button, send it to your friends. We're on every podcasting outlet that you can think of, or send them this video. Hit the little share button, send them this video. What you really need to be doing, though, if you haven't gotten that out of the last hour, is you need to be going to your VOD device and pre-ordering Electric Jesus. It's going to go to your device on the November 2nd. You're going to watch this film. It's great.
And the trailer just dropped 3 or 4 days ago, like the official trailer from our distributor, 1091 Pictures, and it's fantastic. You can hear Daniel's music. You can see so much of the movie. That was totally amazing process that we went through to create the trailer. I mean, they did. I mean, we gave some notes, but it was just, how fun is that? You just make this movie and some people say, I think this is how we're going to sell the movie. It's going to go a little something like this. That was a joy. That was really a joy. I was dreading it. I was like, oh no,
they're going to make a trailer. They're marketing people. They're going to make a trailer. They don't know the heart of they don't know my art.
But it sells, man. It sells. It sells. It's such a good trailer. It really sells the movie. And it's like, yeah. I mean, there's certainly other things to appreciate about the movie, but if I'm just in the marketplace of movies, and there's so many, and I want somebody to click and say, I want to see that. What a great job. So I'm really happy with that trailer. But it just dropped, I think, on the 7th, so just a few days ago. So
Geekscape, look for the Electric Jesus trailer, pre-order Electric Jesus. I think you're gonna like it. You know what? Go to like Spotify or wherever you listen to music. And,
listen to music.
Find that soundtrack. And Geekscape, I can't tell you enough to listen to some of the great shows that we've been popping up here on the network. Much thanks to Matt Kelly for helping organize all that stuff. I know that Chris is going to be on one of the future podcasts and all that. And yeah, if you enjoy Geekscape, share it with your friends. But Electric Jesus, November 2nd, you want to pre-order before that so you can watch it. And it's a great movie too if you're going to have your family around this Thanksgiving. It's a really nice movie to have. I think it's all ages for the most part. It's PG-13.
Yeah, I would say PG-13 at the most.
Yeah. But, it's a good Thanksgiving movie for families to watch.
Yeah,
I think it's fun. There's not enough that I can say about this movie. I really am. I'm glad, dude. You're one of the best things that happened to me in 2021. It's just being friends with you, man. If you can't tell the last conversation.
Well, I'm serious. This is my favorite podcast conversation I've had because we just got to the art, we got to the making, and that's to me the thing. And I know to you too, and many people that are probably listening and watching. It's like, how do things happen? How does something go, like you said, from nothing and becoming something? And to me, that's the real joy of having made the movie, and also now reflecting on it as it comes out into the world. Like, how did this thing happen? I'm not even sure.
I can't wait for people to discover it, and then I can't wait for you to be back for your next film, which we didn't even get a chance to talk about, your past or your future. So there's more Geekscape in that. I know there's more Geekscape in your future. So
I think so. I think there is.
I love you, man. Can't wait to hear you on One Hit Thunder. Geekscape, thank you so much for joining us. Over and out.
Thank you.
Don't hate, create. Peace.